Hi, I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. And I want to wish you a Happy New Year, because this is New Year's Day. And at the start of the year, I always do 2 shows that describe the events coming up for the whole year. And so tonight's show is called Starting Over. And that's because I think we're all going to have to do that in one way or another this year. And so tonight's show will cover the new moons and the eclipses for all 12 months of 2015. Then next week, we will go through and we will do predictions for all of the sun signs in 2015. For the year, though, it's roughly divided into 2 halves. And the first half is going to be very fast-paced, because there is a grand trine in fire signs that holds for the first half of the year. Saturn is in Sagittarius, it is trining Jupiter in Leo, and also Uranus in Aries. So things can speed up. And another reason why things could be rather fast-paced is because there are very few retrograde planets in the first half of the year. So throughout the year, we're going to have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future. And so, yes, you can be hurrying through things the first half of the year, but the second half of the year, it's going to be like we go from fast forward to rewind. And the reason why things are going to slow down in the last half of the year is because 2 major planets change signs. That'll change the emphasis a little bit. And also there are many more retrograde planets. In fact, at some times there are as many as 5 retrograde planets. And so that always does slow things down. The 2 planets that are changing signs are Saturn, which, yes, is in Sagittarius now, but during the summertime, it will retrograde and go back into Scorpio, which is a fixed financial sign. So a financial matter will really have to be settled. In fact, it will have to end, and we will be facing that in the summertime. By the end of the summer, another planet changes signs, because Jupiter will leave Leo. That will break up that grand trine in fire signs, and it will go into Virgo. When it enters Virgo, it will immediately trine Pluto in Capricorn, and those 2 planets will hold in a trine for a whole year. And that puts the emphasis on practical reality, on simpler things and common sense methods of doing things, and that is when modest proposals can really succeed. So we will be going back to basics in the second half of the year, and things will be slowing down, and you'll have to prepare for that as well. But throughout the whole year, we are going to be more starting over than anything else, and there will be different reasons for starting over. So we'll just have to live with that. And the reason why we are going to be working almost at 2 different speeds throughout the whole year is because we open the year with a little bit more stability and a little bit more serious concerns than we had last year. And that is because Saturn went into Sagittarius on Christmas Eve, and it's the planet of stability, so it set up this magical grand trine between Jupiter in Leo and Uranus in Aries. And now that Saturn particularly is trining Uranus, which is a planet of sudden change and volatility, that should steady it a little bit. And Aries is the sign of new starts. So that's why, if you have not exactly succeeded at something so far, I wish you'd sort of think about starting over and giving it another go, because you might succeed this year instead. So what does this mean to all 12 months of the year? Well, in January, on January 20th, there is a new moon at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And there are a lot of planets in Aquarius at that time. And so there can be a lot of sudden change, because the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus are all in Aquarius, which is great, except for the fact that all 4 planets will be opposing Jupiter in Leo. That makes 5 planets in fixed signs in harsh aspect to each other. So there is the possibility that there can be some sudden surprising news or some sudden disruption. And we have to be prepared for the unexpected at that time. And there can be some sort of sudden explosion or even a chemical attack or a gas attack, something that has to do with things underground, because at the time of the new moon, Mars is conjuncting Neptune in Pisces. Pisces rules the oil business and the pharmaceutical field, but it also rules anything below the surface. And that is why there could be an accidental chemical attack or gas attack, but it wouldn't be an accident. That's the important thing to remember, and that's because Mars is conjuncting Neptune, and Mars is a very dynamic and aggressive planet. So I think that this is a time during the end of January, possibly going into early February, when an enemy can attack the soft underbelly in a very unexpected manner. In fact, when it's least expected. So we might have a couple of unpleasant surprises then. And so what does it mean in February? Well, in February, we have a new moon on February 18th at 0 degrees of Pisces. Pisces rules the 12th house of hidden enemies and things behind the scenes and areas of confinement and the things like our doubts and fears that hold us back as well. And there will be so much light in Pisces this year that there's going to be a lot of things revealed this year, surprising things. And that is because there are 2 new moons in Pisces this year. The one on February 18th is at 0 degrees of Pisces, but a month later there's a solar eclipse in Pisces as well. So on February 18th, there is the possibility with a lot of planets in Pisces, there will be 5 of them, that a lot can be revealed. Remember, that's quite a bit of light in the sign that rules things that are hidden. So we could see somebody whose mask comes off. We could see what they are really like at that time. Or a mystery can be solved because more details are illuminated at that time. And also there is the possibility that since all 5 planets in Pisces square Saturn in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius rules the courts, there is the possibility that a judge can disagree now. A judge, I think, is going to disagree on something which they may have passed before, but now they're going to disagree on that. So we have to be prepared for a little setback in that respect as well. And that could be due to more facts that are being revealed at that time. So we have to be a little bit cautious, and if you're trying to hide anything, this spring is not the time to do it because there's going to be so much light that people will see what you're doing. So I hope you're really on the up and up. This is a year when you should not put all your eggs in one basket, and that is because there are at times too much volatility, too many surprises, and you really should have a backup or a little extra piggy bank somewhere in case you need to get into it this year. Okay, what does it mean in March? Well, in March, there is a second new moon in Pisces, and that is because there is a solar eclipse in March on March 20th at 29 degrees of Pisces. The 29th degree is the degree of fate, and so something is really going to be revealed because there is so much light. And so I think that this can be a very dangerous and volatile period, and it could extend from the middle of March at least through the middle of April or beyond. And the reason why it can be so volatile is because right ahead of that new moon solar eclipse in Pisces are 2 dangerous planets that are conjuncting. And it will be that Mars will have moved into Aries by that time, the sign ahead of Pisces, and Uranus is also in Aries. And so there could be heavy-duty cyber warfare at this time, and that is because Mars and Uranus are very malefic planets. And remember, Uranus does rule computers, and it rules sudden change, it rules space travel, it rules aviation, and the whole electronics field. So we have to be very, very careful. There could be a problem with an electrical grid, for example. So there can be a lot of extreme volatility at that time, and yet at the same time with so much light in Pisces, we are going to uncover more hidden information that can be very illuminating and can actually set us on the right track. But I think it can be so dangerous then that I think it's almost like God is asking somebody to have mercy. And the question is, are they listening? Well, we don't know. But I do think that we have to be very, very careful under that Pisces solar eclipse. It can be a time when there is a tremendous breakdown of some sort. But because Pisces is a double-bodied sign, there can also be a miraculous breakthrough. It could be in the pharmaceutical field, or there could be some miracle somewhere in the world as well that has to do with healing. Okay, what does it mean in April? Well, in April, there is the second eclipse this spring. Remember, the first one was the solar eclipse in Pisces. On April 4th, there is a lunar eclipse at 14 degrees of Libra. And Libra rules the law, but it also rules partnership, and it rules people who like diplomacy and are good at compromise and can be very charming. And so this is a time, since a lunar eclipse denotes that the moon is being eclipsed and the moon rules women, when one woman could go and another woman could come, possibly not at the same time, but it would begin then. And this is when I think, since the lunar eclipse in Libra is opposing the sun in Aries and Uranus in Aries, I think this is a time when a very charming woman could step down or leave, but she would do it rather abruptly. It would be a very sudden departure for one reason or another. And so we have that to look forward to, some surprising change. And it could be due for personal reasons. It could be due because a lot of facts are revealed and they just want to get out of the spotlight. So I think a very nice person is stepping down at that time, and we'll just have to live with it. It could be a loss of some sort. And then on April 18th, there is another new moon. This one is at 28 degrees of Aries. Right before the new moon, though, Mars has entered Taurus, and Mercury is in Taurus as well. And those two planets will be opposing the sign of Scorpio, which rules credit, debt, and taxes, as well as financing. And of course, April 18th is pretty close to April 15th, income tax day. So I think this is a time when our taxes can be too high, meaning that there can be additional costs connected with taxes, or it's possible, remember, that you should rob your piggy bank because you could have other high expenses at the same time, because Aries rules new starts. And so a new start is extremely well aspected, and the reason why is that the sun and moon and Uranus will be in Aries, and they will be trining Jupiter in Leo, and together those planets will be trining Saturn in Sagittarius. So this is a good time to make a new start, or since the title of the program is Starting Over, that would be a good time to start over on something. But the problem is it may not be, it may falter because there may not be enough financing. Remember, the planets in Taurus oppose Scorpio, and Scorpio rules financing. So a new start may have to begin more than once in order to get off the ground, because you gotta have money in order to have that happen. So you do need to be patient. We're still in the first half of the year when that grand trine is holding, which will be activated under that Aries new moon. So that is a good time for you to make a new start if you're planning on one. Okay, what does it mean in May? Well, in May, there is a new moon on May 18th at 27 degrees of Taurus. Now, the sun and the moon will both be in Taurus, and the moon is exalted in Taurus, and both of those planets will be trining Pluto in Capricorn, a very practical sign ruling long-term security, particularly pension plans. And Taurus rules investments. So this is a wonderful month for investments. They do pay off, which is great. So if you're thinking of selling something in order to make a new start in one direction or another, you should do that, because you could probably get a little bit more money for something by the middle of May, which is good. This is also a time, once again, though, that we have to be careful about financing or credit or taxes, because those planets in Taurus do oppose the sign of Scorpio, and they square Jupiter in Leo as well. So it would be sort of easy once you sell an investment to sort of go overboard and spend a little bit too much. So you've got to watch out, because an investment might pay off, but then you could turn around and sort of spend it. It could be easy come, easy go, so you have to be a little bit careful about that. All right, what does it mean in June? Well, on June 16th, there is a new moon at 25 degrees of Gemini, and Gemini rules change. But there are a lot of planets in Gemini, and they are all opposing that Saturn in Sagittarius, and they are being squared by Neptune in Pisces. So there are some harsh challenges to that new moon, and that is when I think in June that a forced change is going to take place. I don't know what kind of forced change, but it will be forced because the aspects are so harsh to that new moon. At the same time, there could be a rapid response, some very, very quick response that could more or less save the day, and that would be great as well. So you can be looking for change, but it might throw you off balance a little bit, particularly if it's something that you weren't expecting at all. However, you could react pretty quickly to it as well, which is good. And that's what I think we are all going to have to do. And remember that the rising sign of America's chart is Gemini. So that's a time when we have to watch out. And Gemini rules youth, so we have to watch out for our young people at that time as well. As a forced change, I hope we can react to very, very quickly so that it can sort of save the day. At least that's what I hope will happen. Okay, what does it mean in July? Well, on July 16th, there is a new moon at 23 degrees of Cancer. Cancer is the sun sign of the United States and of Canada. And so this is a time when people can sort of be thinking about getting together with their families, and they can certainly be wanting to have parties and enjoy themselves, because Venus at the same time has gone into Leo and is joining Jupiter there. That's a very romantic aspect because Leo rules love affairs. So that it could be pretty good for that. And so this is a time, since the Cancer new moon is in the sign of America, and it will be trining Neptune in Pisces, which is a very beneficial aspect. This can be a time when America makes a very good deal for itself. And so that's great, except that the competition won't be happy with that at all. They'll be a little bit grumpy about that. But still, it's very, very good for America at that time. And then there can be announcements about weddings or about engagements as well. Okay, what does it mean in August? Well, remember I said that the year sort of goes half and half. The first half of the year is a little bit fast forward. The second half of the year, things really slow down, or we have to sort of rewind, and it's back to basics. And the reason why is that on August 14th, there will be a new moon at 22 degrees of Leo. Except that it's not the regular Leo new moon, and the reason why is that a major planet has just changed, and that is that Jupiter has left Leo and it has gone into Virgo. So it isn't in Leo at the time of the Leo new moon. And that simply means that this can still be a great time for love affairs and weddings and engagements, because Venus is still in Leo even if Jupiter isn't. But the emphasis shifts, and that is because not only has Jupiter gone into Virgo, but during the summer, Saturn went back into Scorpio, and now it will go forward, but it doesn't leave Scorpio yet. And so it is squaring the sign of Leo. It's squaring that new moon, and that simply means that a financial matter that had been contentious for a couple of years, 3 years at least, has got to be resolved, and I think it will be just plain ended. That it's going to be over because somebody can't afford it. And so that's going to be the end of that. And so that's the way it goes. What does it mean in September? Well, in September, we come into the fall eclipses, and they both occur in the month of September. There is a new moon on September 13th at 20 degrees of Virgo. And remember, Jupiter is in Virgo at that time as well. And it will be squaring Saturn in Sagittarius, because Saturn will move back into Sagittarius by then. And it will also be opposing Neptune in Pisces. So there are going to be quite a few planets in mutable signs setting up a lot of resistance or challenges. But it's among the mutable signs who are very adaptable anyway. Still, I think that this is a time when we can learn more facts, and there can be even hidden details that are revealed, because Virgo rules details. And so I think that since Virgo also rules the healthcare field, and it rules accounting, and it rules good time management, things that all Virgos are good at. I think this is a time when the healthcare field will be streamlined. It doesn't mean that it will be degraded in any way. It simply means with this emphasis on more practical matters and on more modest proposals, because Jupiter in Virgo is trining Pluto in Capricorn, it simply means that people are going to want to get a little bit more for their money, or that there can be budget cuts or even changes in management, but it will be in order to provide the same high standards of service, but do it on smaller budgets. And that's why I think the healthcare field will be streamlined. And so I think it will actually work out really well, particularly since Jupiter is in Virgo. So you have that to look forward to. What does it mean in October? Oh, excuse me. Before we get to what it means in October, I just want to say there is one more eclipse in September, and it is on September 28th, right before October starts, and it is a lunar eclipse at 5 degrees of Aries. And so since Uranus is in Aries as well, it simply means that a woman that should have left a long time ago finally leaves. And she gives some sort of plausible excuse like it's due to health reasons or it's due to some other thing, but she finally leaves. It makes everybody rather happy. And so it is a time also when a divorce is final. And that will be right at the end of September going into October. And then on October 11th, there is a new moon at 19 degrees of Libra. Oh no, on October 13th, there is a new moon at 19 degrees of Libra. And since Libra does rule peace, this is a wonderful time for a settlement to be reached. And I think an amicable settlement will be reached at that time. It can be among people that had been sort of sparring or suing each other or mad at each other. And I think that they just decide, okay, better settle something right now. So a settlement is reached in October, but because that new moon in Libra is opposing Uranus in Aries, it simply means that even if there is a peace settlement, somebody is still going to have a very rebellious attitude. That attitude doesn't go away for 3 or 4 more years, but still there can be a settlement. Okay, what does it mean in November? Well, on November 11th, Veterans Day, there is a new moon at 19 degrees of Scorpio. And this is a wonderful new moon because the Scorpio new moon, along with the sun, is being enhanced or embraced by planets around it. There are a lot of planets around it at that time. And so it's a very patriotic time. And certainly we are going to be able to see the huge amount of effort that our soldiers put in to their lives in protecting us throughout the world, and also we'll see the high price that their families pay as well. And so justice will be done in November for sure. And I think we're going to have news about some sort of victory in November, and I think it could be at sea, which would be great. Okay, what does it mean in December? Well, in December, on December 11th, there is a new moon at 19 degrees of Sagittarius. And so I think at this time, the plans that we had been working on, even if we started them over and over and over again, we may be thinking that they're ready to come to fruition by the end of the year. But something is going to be delayed in December that you might have been counting on. And so you may as well sort of be real patient the way you perhaps will have to be all year, because in the last half of the year, there are a lot of retrograde planets, and that does slow everything down. Plus, the emphasis is on more modest proposals and common sense solutions, since there are 2 major planets, Jupiter in Virgo and Pluto in Capricorn, that are trining each other. So we can't get fancy at the end of the year. And that's good, because during the summertime, particularly in August, there is the possibility that somebody who had been gambling quite a bit is going to lose big time. We're going to see somebody who has gambled everything, their reputation, everything that they had on something, and they're going to lose this year. And I think it will be by the end of the summer or going into fall. They'll just lose big time. And so we really do need to be patient and slow down a little bit and get back to basics this year, because in December, even though the new moon is in Sagittarius along with the sun and Saturn, those planets are being squared by Neptune in Pisces, meaning that once again, more facts will be revealed. Remember, there's going to be so much light in Pisces this year that things couldn't remain hidden. But as we find out the real truth about things, or we find out what's going on behind the scenes, we will have to adjust. And that can cause a delay in our plans. So whatever you've been counting on in December, I hope that you're patient enough to wait until after the first of the year, because then that is when it will get completed. And by Christmas Day, there will be a full moon in Cancer, which is the sun sign of America. And so I think that we end the year on a familiar refrain, thinking about that song that says, "I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams." And so there may be Americans all over the world that can't quite get home, but still will be united as one family in our country, and will be supportive of them as they support us. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can subscribe to see this show and all the other shows anytime you want by subscribing on our website, starborninstitute.org. Bye.